And now we worship with our giving. This is a time when we invite you to participate in the missions and ministries that we have here at First United Methodist in DeLeon. And we thank all of you who have made it a priority to give here to what we do and the mission station that we provide here in the community. And it's also an opportunity for us to grow in our discipleship, to grow closer to God. We give back a small portion of what God has given us to steward and take care of while it's in our hands. And we give that to the church so that together we can do things greater than we can on our own. So if you would like to join with us in that giving, you are welcome to give either with a check or cash. If you'd like, there's little envelopes in the backs of the pews in front of you, and you can put it in there and then put it in the basket on your way out of the sanctuary doors this morning. If you are online, or if that's convenient for you here in person, you are welcome to give online at DeLeonFUMC.org. If you click on the donate button, that will let you know how to fill out that information, and we will be able to process that donation. So let us dedicate these gifts in prayer. Generous God, we thank you for showing us what it means to give of ourselves. We ask that you bless this offering and those of us who have given it. Make it according to your will and use it to do the work of transformation that you are doing in the world. In Jesus' name, amen. What they seem. And oftentimes our expectations of others are dependent on our culture and what we've been taught to expect. And I wanted to just show you this cute little video this morning and see if you can spot it.
My name is Shirley Curry. I'm 79 years old. I live here in Rocky Mount, Virginia. I've been playing video games since the mid-90s. That's when my son gave me my first computer and game. They keep my brain active. I'm not that good a player. I'm really derpy, actually, but I love it. I'm the grandma gamer. My very favorite game of all time is Skyrim. I love all the flowers that you can pick. I love the majestic mountains. I love the old dead trees, and it's an adventure, and I like to go on adventures.
Where did he come from? There you go, the kill shot. Yes, glitch it. Oh my God. Give me the kill shot. The kill shot. Yes. I got the dragon soul.
Might be a little unexpected there, the grandma gamer. We often are surprised by things that don't appear or turn out to be as they first appeared. And that is going to be our theme for the Lenten season. How Jesus had a habit of turning his hearers' expectations on their heads. How even today, living the way of Jesus is a little upside down from the way of the world and can turn our lives upside down. So we're going to start today with the way that Jesus radically redefines greatness and success. So we're going to be turning to the Gospel according to Mark chapter 10. And what has led up to this immediately is that Jesus has been starting to prepare his disciples that he will not be with them to lead them in person forever. In fact, he's predicted his death 3 times so far. And you know, it's just after you think you've driven the point home, like, how can I say this any different any more times? James and John get into a sibling rivalry match about who's going to get to be at Jesus' right hand. Then the other disciples who overhear that or hear about it through the grapevine are kind of irritated at James and John for assuming that they were the only 2 candidates. And so everyone starts bickering. Jesus intervenes, decides to make this a teaching moment. Jesus called them over and said, "You know that the ones who are considered the rulers by the Gentiles show off their authority over them, and their high-ranking officials order them around. But that's not the way it will be with you. Whoever wants to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wants to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the human one didn't come to be served, but rather to serve and to give his life to liberate many people." Let us hear what the Spirit is speaking to God's people. This passage always gives me pause. I mean, if the Messiah came not to be served, but to serve, and as he demonstrated with his life, he served those considered the least, the last, the lost, the ones that the good church people wouldn't help or touch. And if our Messiah was not above serving anyone and everyone, are there any among us who are exempt? This passage always makes me question the last time I've gotten my hands dirty. There's some great examples. I wanted to focus more on what this looks like than maybe on what the world defines or the ways that we fall short of that. And I can't help but think of this writing of Martin Luther. Now, this is Martin Luther, the reformer, so in the 1500s, and just as part of the setting, in that era, the roles of men and women were very strictly defined, and the work that women did was seen as less valuable, less important than the work that men did. And that's really important to remember that context when you hear this advice. Martin Luther writes, "Now you tell me, when a father goes ahead and washes diapers or performs some mean task for his child and someone ridicules him as an effeminate fool," which is probably something that was likely. This is not a far-fetched idea. "Though that father is acting in the spirit just described and in the Christian faith, my dear fellow, you tell me which of the two is most keenly ridiculing the other. God, with all his angels and creatures, is smiling. Not because that father is washing diapers, but because he is doing so in Christian faith. Those who sneer at him and see only the task, but not the faith, are ridiculing God with all his creatures as the biggest fool on earth. Indeed, they are only ridiculing themselves. With all their cleverness, they are nothing but devil's fools." What incredibly strong words. What incredibly foreign concept to those men to whom Martin Luther was speaking in the 1500s. Maybe a more recent example. When I hear this passage, I almost always think of Henri Nouwen. Henri Nouwen was a priest, a Catholic priest, and an author, and a world-renowned theologian who had taught at some of the most prestigious divinity schools. He taught at Notre Dame and Yale and Harvard. And he did that for, 20 years or more. And then he quit his tenure-track position, moved into a place called L'Arche Daybreak, I believe in Canada, that was a residential care facility for adults with mental and physical disabilities. And he became the personal caregiver to a man named Adam, who was quite severely disabled, both mentally and physically. He was nonverbal, and he was unable to do any of the daily tasks that are required on his own, or really he was not able to offer much of any help at all. For the last 10 years of his life, Henri Nouwen bathed him, cleaned him, changed him, dressed him, fed him. And Nouwen said that Adam taught him what he had been searching for his entire life: what the face of Christ looks like. Now, I want you to just pause for a second. What was your first reaction upon hearing that story? The reaction that occurred in your body that you immediately, try not to express, you have to process, but what was that? Did you have a reaction? Would anybody share if they did? So many people said to Nowen, you are wasting your gifts. I mean, you have degrees and you're a fantastic seminary professor. You should be teaching. Think of all the people, and of course they made a great argument, all the people you can impact. It will be multiplied because you will be teaching those who then teach and serve.
Counter to that, what dedication?
Oh, what dedication. So part of you felt that, wow, like that's a lot kind of a feeling. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share their first reaction or physical affect that came up? Paul?
Well, this isn't fair because I actually work for people.
That's true.
So my feeling was how lucky he was to be able to do that and to then receive that blessing back and the understanding of what that meant.
Paul, for those of you unable to hear, Paul said, now his first reaction is colored very much by his own background of working with adults with disabilities. And so he thought, oh, how lucky he was, how fortunate Nowen was. I'll be honest, I still get this reaction. My reaction upon hearing that and really visualizing what Nowen spent 10 years of his life doing is an aversion. Something in my body goes, ugh. I would not want to do that. That's important to notice. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, that that's probably a common reaction. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to. I mean, some of us end up as caregivers for loved ones who, become unable to do things just from age or from particular illness or disability or accident. But not many of us choose to be personal caregivers for strangers. Another story that always comes to mind when I'm thinking about this passage is the story goes that there was a visitor or tourist, I kind of think is a good label for this, who went to see the hospital that Mother Teresa created in Calcutta to serve those who in that culture are the untouchables, the lowest caste in their society, the ones especially who then had diseases or conditions affecting their skin and were literally considered untouchable, contaminated. Their own families would not tend to them. Mother Teresa opened a hospital for them, and nuns from around the world have since joined her. A tourist is in this place and walks by and notices a nun who is tending to the sores of a patient with leprosy. And she kind of gasps, I wouldn't do that for $1 million. And the nun heard her and looked and said, neither would I. That gives you some kind of reaction, doesn't it? That one's a very quick flip. Because I think we empathize. I mean, I get that. I'm not a nurse for a good reason. But that's a lot. But that's the kind of service that Jesus is talking about. And the reason I took the time to make this point and explain what level of service we're talking about is because Jesus does that in the passage. So, first of all, it might be helpful to know that translations differ, of course, on how they translate certain words, and certain words are often considered basically interchangeable. So the word that our text, the CEB, translated servant is diakonos, which can also be translated helper, slave, deacon, a number of other things. But it is diakonos. And Jesus says, after that's not how it's going to be with you, he says, whoever wants to be great among you will be your diakonos, your servant. What's important to remember about diakonos is it is voluntary. That is a status, a job you could choose or not. Then he says, because he says, like, that's just average. He says, for you, that is not where the bar is. And he raises the stakes by saying, whoever wants to be first among you will be slave of all. And it is not the same word, although sometimes it is translated also as servant. This word is clearly not. It is doulos. And this word means slave, the person who is owned by another. A person who does not have a choice what kind of service they provide. This is the lowest of their social castes. Jesus makes this point that what you see around you, the people who, according to the world, appear to be getting ahead, the ones who appear to have it all, the ones who are in charge, the ones who regularly abuse their power and treat others poorly, that is not the way things are in God's realm. In fact, it's the most opposite you could possibly imagine. In God's realm, the greatest, the successful person is the one who does the service that no one would choose to do. And doesn't say, look what I'm doing. I'm doing something that is so below me. Jesus says, those are the greatest. Jesus, I believe, would say with Martin Luther that the greatest are the ones who are changing diapers. The greatest are the ones who do the dirty work that no one else wants to do. If you want to get ahead in life, you may do so at the peril of your place in God's kingdom. It's a pretty clear point. Unlike some of Jesus' messages, which are a little bit, ambiguous or just thought-provoking, it's really hard to misunderstand what Jesus is saying here. And I think maybe today he would say, the greatest among you are the teachers, especially like the preschool teachers. Because although our culture gives lip service to the idea that teaching is important and young children's education is important, the way we treat them and compensate them does not reflect that. Especially the teachers of the youngest, who arguably, those are their most impressionable years. But daycare workers get paid minimum wage. And frankly, most places will just hire warm bodies who can pass a background check. I think Jesus would say the greatest are the preschool teachers. The greatest are the CNAs who work at nursing homes and change beds and diapers, who spend time with people who don't even have family that comes and visits. I think Jesus would say, those who do those with faith, who do those jobs faithfully and with goodwill, they are the greatest. That is what greatness looks like. Who do you think Jesus would say are some of the greatest? Anybody want to share? Who do you think Jesus would say are the great in our society? Hospice workers. People who literally wait with the dying. Yeah, definitely. I think so. Anybody else? Yeah. Teachers, you second that one? Great. Yeah. All the teachers who don't get credit for the amount of work that they do, for sure. Anybody else? Volunteers. Oh, yeah. The people who volunteer to go to nursing homes and check in on people who don't have families that check in on them. That's good. That's good. I think it is clear that that's who Jesus would say, those are your models. But if you're like me, that leaves me a little bit unsatisfied because what about me? Where does that put me? Do I need to go find a random kid to change diapers? I think that's probably not advisable in most cases. I think what Jesus would say to us is, be humble enough that whatever the need is in front of you, whoever walks in your path, you are not too good to serve. You are not too good to wash their feet. Do it joyfully and willingly, whatever it is that is presented to you. And I think Jesus would agree with a clergy mentor that I had who asked me, When was the last time you got your hands dirty? I think that's the kind of message Jesus has for all of us. Put aside your ego. It's not all about you. Do whatever needs to be done, even if it is beneath you. And if it is beneath you, try not to advertise that to everyone, because then you kind of just miss the point. I'd like to take this opportunity now to invite you to consider where you are on your faith journey. If you are here with us and have not made a profession of faith, or feel prompted to reaffirm your faith in Christ, or perhaps you want to take the next step of becoming a member of our faith community and taking that step of the responsibilities that come along with those vows of membership, or maybe you don't quite know exactly what that next step is, I would love to have you come and visit with me, share that with me, and help you to discern what exactly that next step is. And if you would like to make a decision for Christ or to join, and you would like to make that in public this morning, then feel free to come forward as we stand together and sing our closing hymn. Week is that as you go, you be alert and observant to those who are serving, who are doing the jobs that nobody else wants, and appreciate, maybe even thank them, and consider how you might serve. Be aware of whoever God puts in your path. Go in peace.